Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Kleins, and I'm with the NACVA and the Consultants Training Institute. A few housekeeping items. First, to obtain CPE credit, you must answer all poll questions that will pop up on your screen during this presentation. We will play this sound to alert you that a poll has been launched, but in case you do not hear the sound, please be attentive and respond promptly to all poll questions. You'll also need to fill out the evaluation that will show up on your screen at the end of the webinar. CPE certificates will be available on the NACFA.com portal in 7 to 10 business days after the presentation. If you have any questions during today's presentation, you'll be able to submit those questions in the chat box. Please use the chat box for relevant questions for our presenters, or if you have a generic comment, technical question, or concern about poll questions, also use the chat feature, as I do monitor those as well. And today's session is titled ZAP Report Builder for Valuators, Automate Creating Valuation Reports. And our presenter, one of our presenters today, is David Fine. David Fine is the CEO of ValueSource. He is an adventurer and entrepreneur. At 16, he became the second youngest person to set foot on the South Pole, built and ran a sailboat charter company, and co-founded a private school. In 1986, he co-founded ValueSource, which provides the #1 best-selling business valuation and economic damages calculation software. David is co-founder and head elf for www.thechristmastreeproject.org, which was featured on CBS National News and The Kelly Clarkson Show. David co-founded Lessons from the Stage Behind Bars, a high-impact theater-based life skills program for prison inmates. David has a bachelor's degree in computer science and an MBA. His mission is to cultivate both personal and professional excellence through the art of business. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to David. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. And I'd also just like to introduce Mark Roberts here and Ninesh, who is going to be helping us out with a couple of things. And Jeremy, I think we do have a couple of polling questions. What I want to do before we jump into this is get a sense of where all you folks are. So Jeremy, can we do those first two poll questions? How many valuations per year do you do, and how many numbers, tables, ranges do you copy from Excel into Word?
All right. I have just launched the first one, everyone. If you will go ahead and answer that. And just give it a couple moments. David, do you see the results on this?
I do. Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Looks like there's a few people still. Okay, that looks like that one is almost done.
All right. Looks like we're waiting for about, what, 7 people? 6.
Can we go to the next one?
Sure. Okay. I'm going to go ahead in this poll. And for those who didn't answer it, this one does not count towards your CPE, so don't worry about that. So poll 2, I'm launching right now. Everyone, please go ahead and answer that.
And what this is about is how much data are you copying from Excel into Word, which is the heart of where this automation process happens. We've been talking to evaluators for a long time about how they do valuation projects and how much data they're copying. And some people do a little, some people do a lot. There's more than ZAP does, but this is one of the important things that it does. So we'll talk about that whole piece when we're done here. But this is very helpful information to see where everybody is. And also, you can type in the chat, just, say hello, tell me where you're from, what your name is, and tell me how much you're struggling automating valuation reports, specifically getting Excel data into Word. You can put a scale of 1 to 10. 1, I'm fine, no problem at all. 10, I'm struggling like crazy. And we talk to people all across the board. So you can just type that in chat, your name, where you're from, and how much you're struggling getting data from Excel into Word. Okay, Jeremy, I think that's good enough.
All right.
Well, cool. We've got some people from New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Where else are we? Mission Viejo. Oh, that's old stomping grounds for me. I used to be from LA. That's a very beautiful place. So we've got a whole range here. People that are struggling, not struggling. That's great. Okay, I think we can be done with that poll question.
Okay, the polls are ended, so it's
great.
All you.
Okay. Well, let's get started here. So what is ZAP good for? It's good for evaluators producing reports in a similar format. And most valuation reports we find are a similar format. In other words, you're not starting with a completely new spreadsheet and a completely new report. You're using some kind of a file that you used before. And the other thing that we're saying that Zap is good for is if you're taking like 20 or more numbers, tables, charts from Excel into Word, it really works incredibly well there. And then the other thing it's really good for is people that need variable content. In other words, if you want to automate that process, the example I always use is a DLOM. Let's say you've got a report that has a DLOM, but you have to go find that last report you did with the DLOM, open it up, hunt for the DLOM content, and paste it into your new report. Zap allows you to do variable content, which means it can become like a table of contents. You can say, I need, this section, this section, this section, this section, and it looks at your Excel file and pulls in the right stuff. What Zap is not good for is valuators that create custom one-off reports. Sometimes we'll talk to people that are doing, really high-end valuations in the six figures, and they're not really starting from a template at some specialized thing. So that, Excel file tends to be unique. The report is one-off. Zap is not good for that. So what is Zap? Zap is a tool that we developed that helps you reduce the time it takes to produce more credible valuation reports. And let me just comment on the idea about credible valuation reports. We've had people tell us that the more data you have in a report and the more specific a report is, the more credible it is. In other words, if you can read through a report and see specific things like, the discount we used is, the buildup rate is here, we made this assumption here, and this was it, it's easier to read and more credible. And what we find is, either consciously or unconsciously, if getting data from Excel into the report is a pain and a hassle and taking a long time, people tend to use less of it. I've talked to firms where they do none of it. In other words, the written report just has references that see appendix in the working papers for these numbers. So, in reading the report, you're constantly flipping back and forth between the report and the working papers with all the data in it. So Zap helps you reverse that whole thing, because once you set up the report, it's incredibly easy to get all the data from Excel into Word, get all the variable content into Word. And then the other thing that it helps with is, how many of you are, 70 or 80% done with evaluation, and there's some change, the attorney sends you some update on the financial statement, you make an adjustment, and possibly every number, table, and chart in your report changes, and then you're back to square one trying to get that data in there. Zap solves that problem brilliantly well by making sure it's all linked. So what kind of challenges are we talking about here that Zap solves? It's the manual entry of getting data from Excel into Word. What we find is there's a couple of things that people do. We're finding a lot of people just copy and paste it manually from Excel into Word. They go into Excel, they actually copy a cell or a range or a chart, and they go paste it into the Word document. That's tedious and time consuming. And once again, the manual updates are a problem. If the Excel data changes, how do you get that data in the report to change? Variable content, like I said, is also another thing that you can think about. And what I'd like you to think about here is, how automated is your report generation process? Is it meeting your needs? Is it quick enough? Is the quality control there? Are you feeling stressed out about having to do that process? We hear that all the time. People feel like you're on a deadline, especially in litigation cases. You're making changes at the last minute, and then who is making sure all that data is right? So the bottom line is, creating valuation reports that include Excel data can be time consuming and error prone and a hassle. So the question is, how do you solve this problem? And there's a number of alternatives. We suggest Zap is a good option to think about, because as people that have been in this business for, I can't believe it's been almost 40 years, but we've been doing this for almost 40 years. That seems way too long, but we must have learned a thing or two in all that time. So what does Zap do? We think there's 4 reasons why you should consider Zap. It automates and standardizes the creation of valuation reports in terms of bringing data in, number tables and charts. And with that variable content, that's a really powerful feature, because you can have sections of the report that sometimes you use, sometimes you don't, and you can use Excel as a table of contents. You can say, I want this section, this section, this section, and this section. You can have all this logic. So it's also an Excel and Word add-in. So you don't need ValueSource software to run this at all. You can just use it if you're using Excel and Word. And we were happy about that too, because obviously not everyone uses our valuation software. Many people are using your own your own Excel spreadsheets and your own Word files for reports. So, this gives us the ability to help people that are not using our software. So it saves time, improves quality, and also helps with realization rates. And the big thing here is it works with your Excel and Word docs. You don't need our stuff at all. You do it with your stuff. We started, actually, I was a programmer at Valuators when we started this whole thing in 1986. And in 1988, we came out with our first report writer. People loved the automation process in terms of, the spreadsheets and the schedules and all that stuff. And they said, can you help us out with the report? The reports are, long, cumbersome, standards-based, and we want some help with that. So we wrote our first report writer in MS-DOS. It was a flat text file. It's come a long way, but people loved it because it was a help. In 2005, we built our product around Microsoft Office, Word, and Excel, and we came out with our first report writer. Now there's thousands of users using our platform to do valuation, database integration, and report writing. And this new one is an Office 365 standalone report writer, so that you can use it without using our software at all. So here's what it does specifically: link data. So if you've got cells, ranges, or charts from Excel that you want to bring them into Word, you can do point and click. And one of the things we're offering today too is if you have a report and you decide you want to try and buy Zap, we will actually connect it for you. In other words, you'll send us your documents, we'll Zapize it for you, send it back, and that way you don't have to go through the process of linking all those cells. Mark does a brilliant job of making that happen so you can get productive right away. So once the links are done, the other thing that happens, like I said, is Excel data changes, and this keeps the Word document in sync. So auto update will do a few hundreds or even thousands of links to Excel, and the changes ripple through the entire document in seconds. So variable content, here's an example. Sometimes you have a DLOM in your engagement, sometimes you don't, and the report needs to reflect that. So, the manual way to do that is you copy and paste it from another report into your report. The way you can do it in Zap is you set your template up. We call it a template. It's just a Word file that has everything you need in it. And you can say, here's the things that I want to automate. Maybe there's a DLOM. You could probably think of a dozen or 24 other things that may or may not be in your report, and this will help you automate that entire process. So it's a big help. The other thing that we find too, and Ninesh can talk about this, is if you can automate this process, it also changes who can do these reports. Like Ninesh will talk about how he passed off a complicated engagement letter task to an assistant once he Zapized his process, because it had all that stuff in it. He didn't have to look at the first draft. So that's another thing to think about, how this whole thing works. So it's an Excel and Word add-in. It gives you obviously all of the stuff that Word and Excel do, but there's a little menu on both Word and Excel so that you can do the things that you need to do in Zap. So you already know how to use Word and Excel. This is a pretty simple learning curve. And Mark's our tech support guy. He's Mr. Zap around here. He knows more about Zap than all of us because he works with people day to day in that. So, and there's a minimal learning curve. It's pretty easy. Once again, we help you out. We will link your first report for you. And the goal is to automate this process. So what I want you to think about, whether you use Zap or not, is in your report writing process, are there ways that you can make it more efficient, more credible, and once again, reduce your stress? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say it gets stressful at deadlines trying to get these reports together, because you need to make sure that they're accurate, they're precise, the data in the report reflects what you're doing, the sections of the report actually are the right ones. So those kind of things, it helps. So one of the things that we're trying to do too is get you more efficient at report writing, to use more Excel data to increase your credibility, and spend less time updating Excel. The goal is, if you can spend more time actually doing narrative in the report or the analysis and not doing the manual, I call them ditch digging things in Excel and Word, your process becomes more efficient. So I want you to think about that. How much time do you spend, both in Excel and evaluation doing those kind of things? How much time do you spend in Word doing, copying and pasting data, finding sections of the report? What we find is people tend to spend a little more time than they think about it. And if you could automate that process, what's the payoff? Obviously you can finish it faster, but I think a more important piece is you can spend more time creating a better report and a better valuation. So it works with your Excel documents. This is really cool. You can load any Word document and any Excel document into zap, we call it, you can zapize it. In other words, you can create those links. Once again, we will do that for you for your first report just by sending us those documents. So for, simple documents to complex documents, this makes life a lot easier. Sounds like we have a polling question here.
Yeah, go ahead and continue. Just don't
Okay.
worry about the poll.
So now the reason why Ninesh is on this call with us is because one, he's a great guy and he's become a friend. But a number of years ago, when Zap was sort of in the beta stages, he looked at Zap and he had been working on a complex engagement letter that he thought Zap could help with. So what I want him to do now, he's going to show you a demo of that engagement letter, which I think is very cool. At the end of this, after Mark actually shows you Zap. But Ninesh, can you just talk a little bit about your thinking about automation in the valuation process with technology, both for analysis and spreadsheets and reports? You've had a lot of experience with that.
Thank you for inviting me, David. When you mentioned 1986 and 1988, it reminded me of when I moved to Canada for business school from India in 1989, and I hadn't seen a PC before. And then I had to pretty fast learn how to use. I don't know if how many of you in the group remember WordPerfect and Lotus.
Yeah.
I'm sure, David, you remember. And I learned from some people how to bring image into Word and some numbers into Word, but it was such a painful process. And how far have we come along? I always believed in automation. Always like to reduce friction and repetitive processes. So if there is anything that repeats, in my mind, technology should do it. And so we were looking at how to our engagement letter took whole day, and our sales guy was telling us, what happens if I get you 2 or 3 engagement in a day? And I said, wow, that's a challenge. And we internally thought if we can get an engagement letter out in 15 minutes, that would be awesome. And then along during the same time, came across Zap and tried to implement that. And of course, I will show you some of what we did. What our valuation process, why we need some of this automation, at least at the engagement level or at the proposal level and at the report level, is we do complex valuation and so many different type of entities we work with. So we want to understand how we can bring the automation into the process. And we use internally, we want to standardize everything. So SOP is like a big buzzword internally. We want to make sure that we have a standard operating process for everything. And report writing being a complex process, valuation being a complex process, we want to just slowly chip away with automation. I'll go into the engagement letter later on after Mark's presentation. But you all might have seen a standardized engagement letter which has a lot of complexity, and how do you reduce that with Zap? I will show you that. So just to kind of mention, automation in my mind is it saves you time. You can take on more projects and then be comfortable with it. So just not just regular technology that you use for your own regular processes, but how can you make your report writing faster? David touched on this, but imagine you have a valuation done, and we have one going on now. We have all the information. There are all in all 6 entities. There are sub entities. We have data for everything but one entity, and it's only small, so we are waiting for the data. But now imagine you wait for this information, and once you get the information, then you have to develop the report. That would be it would take it would be too difficult to produce a report in time. So what you can do is get everything ready, have connections, Zap connections in your Word, and one data changes, and you can update everything in one click. And that's what we want to get to for every report that we do. And I think it's a good goal for you as well. So I'll give it back to Dave to you, David, to you, and see if there is any questions or
I have a quick question.
anything that you had in
Yeah,
mind.
question. Obviously this is sort of an iterative thing. You automate to some level and then you get into sort of production mode and you're working. Do you have specific, like, do you have a proactive strategy to like review automation or review your process on a regular basis? Or does something just hit you and go, this is frustrating, and then you find a solution for it? Like, what's your approach?
My approach is continuous improvement and continuous automation. But sometimes you have to put a dedicated time to get a process in place. So for example, for report writing, I would use continuous improvement. Our reports are quite customized, and it's difficult to standardize as much as I want. But I'm sure a lot of people in audience, they have a same report almost every time, and that can be easily customized or standardized and automated. But then, the engagement letter and proposal that I was talking about earlier, I had to decide, look, I'm going to get this done, and I put in a lot of time. And David, you've seen it, and I'll show it to others to automate. And it took. I'm not a programmer, so that makes it harder. But this doesn't need programming skill; just basic Excel skill will help. And I just put in maybe 10, 15, whatever hours of time, and just got it done.
Yeah. Well, I thought you did a great job with it, and we'll show everybody
Sure.
how that works. Mark, you want to share your screen and give a demo of Zap?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So Zap is pretty straightforward. It's not a separate exe you run. It's not anything like that. It's a Word and Excel add-in that's built directly into the Microsoft Office platform. You can see here at the top, there's a Zap Word tab. And if I go over to Excel real quick, there's a Zap Excel tab at the top here that will populate once you get this installed. The first thing, I'll just go through some of the different menus here. The Zap menu, this is where you can go into the default settings. There's some more options that have been added. We added a new option that will check the version when you start up Zap, so you never have to worry about, is my version outdated? It'll alert you. You can say no, but it'll keep alerting you for that. And some different, some help things about just some different things that might be useful. The Documents tab, this is kind of like your main hub for where all the documents are stored at. We have some sample reports in here. There's some templates in here, which we'll expand on in the future. There's a select custom templates folder. So with Zap, you're going to be creating, most likely you'll have one standardized report that you use for everything, and then you're just going in and changing all the financials, the name of the company, et cetera, et cetera. So what Zap is trying to do is automate that process, and by doing that, you're going to have a standard template that's in the Word side, and then what you're going to do is end up changing the Excel, financials and everything every single time. And you can have a custom templates folder, and you can look at all the custom templates. These are some other templates that I was working on for some people. And then if you hit explore, it'll actually pop up, and you can actually open up where those custom templates are at. You can change that folder whenever. We're exploring some different options in the future to make it so you can save templates anywhere, but that'll be down the road. The new report button, I'll go over that kind of down the road in this demonstration. It's easier to kind of explain that towards the end. Manage workbooks are to see what workbooks are connected. So once you link an item into the report, it'll show up here in the workbooks list. There isn't like a limit to how many workbooks you have. I think one report I've done for somebody, they had like 6 or 7 different workbooks. Going forward, I tell people it is easier though if you combine just all the workbooks together and just have, say you had 5 workbooks with 4 tabs, have one workbook with say 20 tabs on it. It just makes it easier for Zap. So if one file moves, you're like, okay, I just have to worry about one file. Whereas if you had, say, 4 or 5 different Excel files, you may run into some, you won't run into issues, but it can just be a headache of, okay, did I save all these files? If I moved one, did I move them all into a new folder, etc. It can just become a hassle later on for the end user. There's an update button here that will update the whole report. I'll just show you. It's pretty quick to update. Somebody asked in the chat or in the Q&A earlier, is there an option to update everything? Yes. You can also update an individual link by just clicking on the link and hitting update. I always tell people just hit the update button unless specifically you need to update just one link. With how fast Zap is and how efficient we've got it running, there's not really a point of hitting the individual update link. But like I said, you can, it's just up here. But if you want to update everything, you can hit this update all button. As far as these menus right here, links is these items that have a gray background. Blocks, I'm not in a template mode. Let me just open. Let me just open a template here. Okay, so now I'm in a template active. It switched from report active to template active. The blocks are for optional content, and Dinesh will get into that more. You'll see how advanced and how crazy he got with optional content in there. You can do very basic things to where you just toggle on and off a paragraph. And optional content is pretty much when you generate the report, you say, I want XYZ sections, I want XYZ language, I want XYZ paragraphs, sentences, numbers. You can have it toggle charts on and off. You can have it toggle ranges on and off. Like I said, you can get as simple as just as simple as a paragraph. Or like I said, when Anesh goes over it, you'll see how advanced you can get with it. But that's generated when the reports are first generated. So when you select a new Excel file and you generate a report from your template, I'll go out to where these toggle blocks are actually at here and kind of show you what you can do. So you can set up true false. Anything that Excel recognizes as a true false statement, you can set up for a toggle block in here. And what you would do is you would have, say you had all these links, it was your schedule, everything else. And then you're saying, I don't want a DLOM section, so you'll change this to false. I don't want an RMA section or a benchmark comparison, you'd hit false. You want the biz comps down, the biz comp section to come in. You want the value source market comp section to come in. You want the guideline public company section to come in, etc. You just set those how you want it for each of the different sections. And then when you generate the report, it'll bring in language, it'll take out language regarding that. So if anybody's familiar with our Value Source Pro product, it's how the conclusion of value kind of is set up. It'll bring in language depending on each of those different sections. As far as linking things, it's pretty straightforward. You come over to the Excel side. Like I said, you can highlight a range. So I'll just highlight this range right here. I'll go up and hit create link. I'll come back over here. Then I'll go back into the link editing mode. I'll hit paste link. And now that section's in there. Right now I'm running like the dark mode of Office, so that's why it looks weird. It would print normally, it's just how the gray background is showing up. But it's pretty quick. And then if you want to update something, if you change all these numbers to, I'm just change them on to 1,000 real quick. And then I'll come back over here. And like I said, you can hit this update button to update just the one link. Now you can see that's all 1,000. Or like I said, you can update that. So it's dynamic. So if you forget that you changed something in Excel and you're like, oh, I don't remember if I changed it in Word, just hit the update button. It'll update all the different links and whatnot that are in there. And same thing goes for just a single cell. You click create link. It'll ask if you want to use the range name. The thing about the range name is nice is if you change where that's located at, it'll still look for that range name. Whereas if you use the range address, if you change anything, if you move where that cell is, etc., it's not going to remember that. Whereas using the range name, we'll look it up differently and always know where that's at. Same thing.
Jump in here for 1 second.
Oh, yep.
Just a comment. Oh, and one of the things, although it's subtle, it's a big deal. When you have ranges in Word, like let's say you're bringing in financial statements and you have to resize them. Let's say it's really big or really little and you resize them. Normally in Word, if you're copying and paste it, every time you paste it, you're gonna have to resize it. Zap remembers the size that you put it at. So that's just another one of those things. It's, you know, it's typical with charts. You put in a chart and then you want to size the chart. And then, you know, the next time you do it, if it's a manual process, you have to resize it. Zap remembers all of that stuff. So it's just one of those subtle things that you don't have to go through and figure out every one. And some reports have, you know, dozens of ranges and dozens of charts and dozens of, you know, big ranges with lots of numbers in it that people are resizing all the time. Go.
Oh, looks like there's a polling question. I was just going to go through some of the QA questions because they were related to what I was going through. Janae, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. You were saying you can link between different Excel files. Yeah, so you can have the Excel files located wherever you'd like. If they're on different drives, if they're in Dropbox, etc., you can have them, you know, if you have an Excel on, you know, OneDrive, and then you have one just locally, it'll be able to update between all those. The only thing right now we don't really support is SharePoint, but everything else, you can have your Excel files spread out, so they don't necessarily have to be in the same place. And if you're ever curious of where they're at, you, like I said, you can just hit the Manage Workbooks, and as long as they say found in here, then you're good to go. If not, you can just click on it and hit replace, and it'll open up and you can choose different workbooks for that. But like I said, it doesn't really matter necessarily where those are located at. I'm trying to think of what else. Yep, there's some other functionality with things. There's a replace text with link. So this is really helpful, at least for me right now when I'm working on linking reports for people. So say somebody's name, you can see here it says Alice Q Data Sleuth. If I wanted to replace that with a link, so say I wanted to type in, let me just, I'm trying to find a good example. I'll kind of explain it. But the way it works is you type in what you want the text to replace. So if you have name XYZ, you hit OK, and it's going to say, do you want to replace everywhere in the report that has name XYZ with that link that you copied? So you would come over here, you would copy her name, you would hit create link, use their name address, and then like I said, you come back over here, and then you would hit yes, and it would replace everything that had name XYZ with that specific link. So like I said, it's really helpful if you're replacing names, dates, company names, numbers that are repeated over. So say you had a number that was like $500,000, $30, and you want to replace that everywhere in the report. You can just mass replace that all at once. So like I said, it's not so much when you're, you know, creating reports from a template, it's not super helpful, but if you're going in and setting up a template altogether, it can really make going through and doing that a lot quicker. Because otherwise you're like, okay, I have to find everywhere with this Alice Q Data Sleuth, you know, copy the link, go back and replace it. So it makes it, you know, a lot faster as far as that goes. There's also this alias button up here. So another way to kind of copy and paste things quickly is you can click on a link. You can hit create alias. I'm going to hit yes. I'm just going to say client name in here. And then I'll go up here to the manage aliases, and you can see that there's some in here already. And I'm just going to favorite this one real quick. And then what that does is when I go, I'll just scroll down here. I can go in here and hit favorites. Hit client name, and you can paste that over and over again. You can do the report date over and over again, etc. So, and anything that's saved in this favorites, or even in the aliases altogether, it gets saved into that template. So they'll always be there going forward as far as that goes. So you don't have to worry about, okay, all my aliases are going to be cleared out the next time I go in and generate a report. They'll still be attached to that specific report. So if you're looking through and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to add somebody's name in here, I need to add a date, instead of going back to the Excel and hitting copy, you know, copy link, paste link, you can just go into anywhere, say right here, and you can just paste that in, and it'll be a link that works 100%. As far as generating new reports once you have a template, so once you're done with everything, you get everything set up, you have all your links together, and you're ready to generate a new report. What you'll do is you'll save the report as a custom template. And I'm just going to name this test, and I'll put today's date on here. And now this is saved as a template. So once you're done with that, you'll hit new report. You'll see that there's now a template listed in here called test 620-2024. And then what's going to do is it's going to ask you for an Excel file. What I recommend and what I've been telling people is to have a default Excel file that has everything laid out exactly the same, all the financials are the same, et cetera, et cetera. And then what you would do is you would just create a copy of that and rename it. So you would rename it from client ABC to client XYZ. And then all you'll have to do is come in here and browse. You can hit replace. I'm going to come in here. See here, Zap demo. I'm just going to change this in here. I'm going to hit done, and then it's going to generate a brand new report based on that Excel file. And a lot of things in here all aired out because that wasn't the same Excel file with the same names. But everything would filter in to be exactly the same as long as all the cells and the ranges and everything else matched up. You'll have all new company names, you'll have all new dates, you'll have all new schedules that will carry across for that as far as that goes.
Mark, can you show that process on the little sample one we have?
Yeah, let me see here. I just want to make sure I grab the correct I just want to make sure I grab the correct report and things. So Zap demo.
Demo report, I think is the name of it.
Yeah, Zap demo report. Okay. See report. What? Okay. Why is that not? Let me just open this up here real quick.
Yeah, that's it.
I just need to save it as a custom template because it's not. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the information in here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit new report. I'm going to change this from the template. It's going to say it's missing. I'm just going to go back here, select the Zap demo that I just edited. And then once that's generated, it'll have. Yeah, so you can see some of the stuff that's in here. March 31st is a new date. XYZ is a subject company. So that's how it works. You just change all the information in the Excel. Like I said, what I recommend is having a master Excel template, and then you copy it and then just rename it to whatever the company's name and however you decide to keep track of the files would be the easiest way to do things. Like I said, you change all the financials, all the company information, and then you go in and generate that new report. You can have a brand new report that has all the updated information. You can go through and check. Another thing, if you want to just quickly see where something is at in the Excel, you can click on a link and then go up here and hit go to source, and it's going to put the green cursor around in Excel where that item is. So you can see exactly what's being linked. So if you're ever curious, like, oh, did I link the right thing? Did I link the right cell? It'll take you to exactly where that's at. Besides that, I mean, that's pretty much the whole product. David, do you have anything to add on to that as far as things go?
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks. I think that was a great summary of how that works. I think the thing to think about is there's really two different modes that you're in. One is creating your valuation template. In other words, creating the text, creating the links, and doing all that stuff. But mostly, once that's done, what you're doing is generating reports, which is what Mark just showed you. So once you have, a Zap template and you're ready to generate a draft report, it really just takes, 30 seconds to go through that process. Now, sometimes you'll be adding links to individual projects. But like I said, a vast majority of what you're doing is really just creating reports. So Ninesh, can you show your screen and show the engagement letter? I was really impressed with what Ninesh did here. I think you got a engagement letter from somebody else that was pretty sophisticated. It was the most sophisticated engagement letter I've ever seen in 40 years. And so why don't you show it and explain the engagement letter and then your approach to automating it and how Zap helped? You're muted, Ninesh.
When I started in valuation, I didn't know anything about good engagement letter, and somebody gave me a template, which was all manual, but there were a lot of options, whether it's going to attorney, whether it came from a third party, whether you're sending it to client directly, and then all the options that you and I know, whether it's fair market value, whether it's fair value, whether it's valuation for some M&A. So not only purpose, the standard, and then whether it's minority or majority, whether it's control or non-control, all of those options are one group of choices that we have. And based on who your client is, who the entity is, who's hiring you, there's a whole set of language-related issues that pop up in the engagement letter. And it became quite complex, as you probably know. It becomes pretty lot of manual editing in the report. And as I mentioned, our intention was, how can we get this engagement letter out in 15 minutes? And so I started with this.
How long did it take you before you automated it?
I think it's like whole day. You reread it and you reread and make sure that because you don't want to send out a engagement letter that has error, because now you're just starting with a wrong impression with the client. So we are very thorough in terms of what goes out from the firm. And so there are multiple reads, and then finally it goes out. So I would say, if we were any good, it would be one day, if not more. And then we wanted to bring it down to like 15 minutes. And how do we do that? So let me, this is the same way what Mark showed you. I have a custom template for engagement letter, which before I start that, let me show you the Excel worksheet that I have, and this will kind of explain. So if this is pretty complex, or it became complex, because I wanted to cram everything, all the changes that one would need. You drive the changes from the Excel worksheet, and then you don't have to touch the engagement letter at all, the Word document. You just run it, and it's ready to go. But in the process, I think this is more complex than most of you would need. So you can start with some simplicity and make it even easier. But if you think about engagement, you have so many, 3 parties at least involved, or sometimes 3 parties involved. What are you valuing? Who are you valuing for? And who's hiring? That's just starting point. Then, so I get all of that information. Are they paying upfront? Are they paying half? Are they paying full? So that's another set of variables. Then you're talking about whether it's a LLC, whether it's a C Corp, S Corp, where are they based? Because all of that has to be part of the engagement letter. Are you valuing, and we value a lot of unusual entities. So sometimes we value litigation, sometimes we value intellectual property. So that has to be captured. And so on this column C is all of that, all the variables that kind of goes into, initial information flow. And then on the column F here is, and all of you see, David, you see this, right? You see the Excel?
Yep.
Yeah, good. And then on column F is all the drop-down menu. So Mark touched on some of those options that one would have. Excel has this good tool where you can drop down. You can have a drop-down choices. So for example, Is it if you look at the column F and cell C, cell 3 rather, limited liability corporation, is it business, is it agreement, is it stock ownership? So that's one way to think about it. What type of what is the purpose? So I have 8, 10 purpose that you can choose. All of that it's available just from the menu here. Creating this drop down is not difficult. You can Google it. You can look at a couple of YouTube video I learned after I started using Zap. Then there is other drop downs that is connected with block. So if attorney is hiring us, but they are saying client, they are hiring us so that they can we are under the same protection as client, something called COLA agreement. We want that or not. So that's one of the choices that we would have here. For example, if you look at who's hiring you, and if it is who's engaging you, if it is attorney, then you know whether you are you want to think about, do you want to have a COLA agreement or not agreement, COLA not agreement, and so you can choose on that. Once all of these choices are done, then I think then your report is ready to go. So I'll show you the Word document that's connected with all of this.
But Nanesh, can you go back to this spreadsheet for just 1 second?
Sure.
And show, because I think one of the coolest things that you did was that thing with the language. Where's this?
Yeah. Thanks. So as I mentioned, the language becomes really difficult depending on the combination of client and attorney and third party, or whether the client is male or female. All of that has to be captured. So one of the things I struggle with is how to change the language automatically. Here is where I try to, and this is all formula based. And I'm sure, if you spend time, and any one of you ever have a question, you can always send me email and I can guide you through some of this formula. Not a difficult thing to do. But I wanted to understand how do you use does, do, or something else? Do you use agree or agrees? Do you use its or theirs? And this all language gets driven through the model. I bring this cell, which captures a number, and based on the number, the language gets selected. This is what the engagement letter will pick automatically in terms of what should be said in the letter.
I thought that was so cool that you decided to tackle this problem and came up with this solution, because I think many of you, when you're looking at your reports, you're doing these kind of things, the selection, the tone, the tense, those kind of things. And could you click on the text option one? Because I think you even built some sentences on that next tab. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another one. Yeah, so in the regarding line, you want to say whether if it is a preferred share, you want to say something different. If it is goodwill, you want to say something different, and all of that gets captured through text options. Yeah, it's and then we have so that was a subject. So subject interest is a little bit different than regarding line, and regarding line should be read differently, and the language has to change. So it's everything. It is complex now. I don't have to worry about it, but it captures everything that, and the beauty with Zap is if there is a completely new assignment that I haven't tackled before, and the engagement letter might change because of that, I can make sure that I capture that here, so that for the next assignment, it's automatically done. So I didn't have all this early on. Like we did goodwill one time, and so I had to add that, and then just move on from that. So if you go back to the engagement letter here, you see all the grade item is what changes, and here is a block, the toggle block that Mark mentioned. It's this gets selected or this gets selected, and that's again, if you go back to the here is a Zap option. These are all the these are the how many options gets you have to select from. You don't do manually. Everything is driven from this one page. Everything is driven from the input page. That's it. You don't touch anything else. But this all changes automatically, and it converts from true to false. Again, everything is formula based, and then once that's all done, this when you run the report, it automatically picks up on the right block that you want, right language you want, and you get the final product. Let me just show you how this gets done. So I pick this engagement letter, and I'll reconnect this link here, and that's it. And that's it. This is my engagement letter.
So now how long?
One more automation step that Dave, I'm thinking about is now our salesman captures data in Excel or one of the other Microsoft application, and I'm trying to bring that data directly into my data. So I'm working on it.
Right. Well, I think you did a brilliant job of automating this, and this is the engagement letter. This is the first step of a evaluation. Have you used Zap yet on your reports themselves? Or
I have, and I have also. So I ran I have a proposal too, which is connected with Zap, which is also connected with same worksheet. So it's one worksheet is driving everything. I don't have to rewrite recaptured client data, and then I have reports that. As I mentioned, my reports are a lot of customization, but when you connect the tables and the graph and the data and names of the company, it becomes so much easier because if you just have to change one thing and update automatically. Any questions?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I think you did a great job doing this, but I think it hopefully will spark some thinking and conversations in all these people's offices and firms about what kind of engagement letter are we doing, how are we. I mean, one of the things that struck me was how many pieces of an engagement letter you should consider. One of the things that you offered, which I'm hoping you're still offer, is if anybody wants to see this engagement letter in spreadsheet, you're willing to send it to them, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway,
yes, of course I will send it, but I think it's easier if you send me, we connect on the phone and I can guide you. Because
so if anybody's interested, reach out to
absolutely.
Somebody, Mark or me or Jeremy at NACPN, just tell them you want Ninesh's engagement letter. I'm not sure you want to go through 20 demos of this thing, but it really is a good idea. And then it also follows, obviously, the valuation report is 100 times more complicated than an engagement letter. It's standard based. There's hundreds of things you're considering. So whatever you're thinking about in an engagement letter, the report itself is multiples of that in terms of complexity, and Zap can help automate that entire thing.
And that's why I haven't been able to standardize, because already we have so many different versions of reports, and it's too much to have one template. So we are doing it for individual report, but not running all our report from one template, which some people I bet can do it because all of the reports are similar, whereas in our case it's not.
Give me a second. Let me just share my screen really quick. Well, Ninesh, thank you very much. Thank you for being so involved in the beta of Zap and getting that very cool engagement letter and being so helpful working with us. I super appreciate it.
I think there are a couple of questions in the chat.
Chat. Let me take a look at chat. Mark, are you seeing the chat?
Mark, you're muted.
Oh, someone's asking about Macabus. I think there's a couple of differences. I think Macabus is more links than optional content. So this is designed to help you do that. And there's some other features in here. We have some tools in here to help you do things like, if you have a range, if you're bringing in a range of data, of financial statements, and the range is variable. In other words, sometimes you have 2 years of data, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. We can help you do those kind of things. I think those are the big differences. I think this one's designed specifically for reports. Macabus is actually a whole tool, and they have one function that works in linking. And we're also moving, going forward, we're looking at other things. If anybody has any ideas for ways to automate valuation report building, that's our goal, is to help you automate it as much as possible. So there is some overlap with Macabus. You have to look at the functionality of both. I'm obviously very biased. I think Zap is a great tool to do this. And we're running out of time here, so let me just talk about the offer here. If you want to give Zap a try, and here's what I would encourage you to do. If you're doing, more than 5 reports a year and you're bringing in more than 20 pieces of data, I think it's absolutely worth trying. In our experience, we've been working with dozens and dozens of people. It puts a big smile on their face once we automate the report. And like I said, once again, we will give you the $50 discount on an annual subscription. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if it doesn't work. And we are giving you the conversion for free. So if you send us your report, Mark will Zapize it for you and send it back, so you can get started right away without having to learn all the linking kinds of piece. There's a promo code June24-ZAP for the discount. You can call NACVA Member Services at the number there, or just email them and they will help you do that. So I hope this helped do 2 things. 1, explain Zap. 2, if you think Zap is for you, obviously that's great. But if you think Zap may not be for you, I would encourage you to think about automation in your process of generating reports. And is there a way to make it more efficient, more productive, and also less stress-free, so that the process is not a time crunch and a stressful thing at the end of the day. So do we have any more questions? Someone's asking about the recording. We will have the recording. Jeremy, I'm not sure how you're going to get that out, but we will have an edited version of the recording that we can send out to you, so definitely. And was it Catherine? Thank you for your recommendation of Zap. We have a lot of people that are using it and loving it. So, if you think it makes sense, I'd encourage you to try it. Are there any last questions? Monthly subscription price for 1 user. How much is Zap, Mark? Is it $4.95 a year?
Yeah, it's $4.95 a year. We don't do monthly subscriptions for it.
Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see any more questions. So thank you all for spending an hour with us today and learning about Zap. If you have any questions, reach out to your NACVA rep and they can help you. And if you want to see Ninesh's engagement letter, let somebody know. They'll get it to us and we'll get your contact information to Ninesh, and we will get you hooked up with that. So if there's nothing else, thank you very much. And we will see you some other time. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you all. Bye.